It's the end of times. Gnashing of teeth, fire and brimstone, everything's burning. Let's settle down. Let's relax a little bit. I see everybody in the chat's pretty calm right now. Yeah, guys, you saw the title. You've heard the news by now. Micah Hudson is stepping away from football activities, and this is an A&M receiver room that's been under a microscope the entire offseason so far, trying to rebuild the thing from scratch after losing Noah Thomas. And a lot of people are freaking out about what's going on with Micah Hudson. I don't want to mince words here. Let's look at the report itself. There's been very, very little reported about the situation. I think people are blowing this out of the water in a big, big way. So let's just get ahead of it. Let's read the first reporter, which was Pete Nakos of On3. Let's get this out of the way. I had a bunch of stuff planned for the show tonight, but this is a bit of a bomb that we have to go through and just talk about the ripple effects of. On December 15th, former Texas Tech wide receiver Micah Hudson committed to A&M via the portal. Now just over a month since joining the Aggies, Hudson is temporarily stepping away from day-to-day football activities, per On3's Pete Nakos. Hudson only spent one season at Texas Tech, made 8 appearances. Although Hudson's statistics are off the page, he has immense potential. Goes on about his high school. He's far from the only addition that A&M has made this offseason. The Aggies have also added star receivers Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver. In Mike Elko's first season at the helm of A&M, he led the Aggies to 8-5. Texas A&M closed its season on a sour note, and it just goes on to talk about Elko's culture and what Elko wants to do in year 2. And the ends with any luck, Micah Hudson will return to the team sooner rather than later. After all, Elko seemingly has big plans for his second season as A&M's head coach. So I would just like to point out that nothing in this report indicates that Hudson is done forever. Nothing indicates that Hudson was struggling in any regard. We know he left for personal reasons, and we're leaving it at that for now. I know a lot of people are talking about mental health concerns, and of course we wish that that's all good for Micah Hudson, but that hasn't even been reported. All we know is that he's away from the team. They use the word temporarily here. He can come back anytime. Billy Lucci also did a write-up on Texags that I can't bring to you because that's behind a paywall. Sounds like the door is open for Micah Hudson to come back whenever he figures out whatever he's going through. So for now, you pray for Micah Hudson. You wish him the absolute best. And A&M will continue to build out this receiver room in a way that they were probably already going to. I don't think A&M was about to get satisfied with the work they had done at the receiver position, being that you're essentially rebuilding the room without any experience coming back now that you lost Noah Thomas. You have Bussy, but you have Bussy, Craver, Casey Concepcion, a bunch of freshmen. Hudson, who himself had a lot to prove, tremendous potential, tremendous upside, but hadn't proved it yet. You were rebuilding this room regardless. So they will continue to do that. They'll continue to build the defensive line. They'll add a couple pieces in the spring. They'll keep doing that. Elko knows what he's doing. Elko's given us no reason to believe he can't build a roster. He's done a great job at that so far in these last few recruiting cycles, his first few portal cycles. And we have a whole spring window to work with coming up, of which last year he added a bunch of players. So it's all good. I have a feeling that before the social media age, that something like this wouldn't even have gone reported. It would have been handled internally, and we would have found out about it if it came time to list the roster preseason, like fall camp time, and his name wasn't on it. That's when it would be addressed. But because things run rampant, rumors spread, he said, she said, reporters have to get ahead of this thing. Billy Lucci has to get ahead of this thing. And here we are, a lot of stuff running rampant. So all that's been reported is that he's stepping away, and hopefully he deals with whatever personal endeavors he is going through. All right. I had to get that out there. I wasn't going to do a show tonight without talking about it. Let's say what's up to everybody in the chat. Thank you for being here. I think this is the first call-in show we've had since right after the bowl game. I think right after, maybe before the bowl game. I think we've had one after the bowl game. So good to see you guys. We've been doing a lot of watch parties for basketball. We'll keep doing those. I'll be going live Monday night for the national championship, Ohio State, Notre Dame. If y'all want to get your predictions out for that, throw it in the chat right now. We'll do that. It'll be fun. And I'll see you there. And we got baseball right around the corner. Basketball is a huge stretch coming up for winnable games. A lot of stuff going on in the world of Aggie sports. So we'll enjoy it. We'll keep putting stuff out. Who's here today? I see familiar faces, familiar names. I see Jeb. I see Cooper. Kind of like the Bryce Foster situation. I don't know. I can't say it's like any other situation we've seen before because I just don't think we have enough information yet. And if y'all are citing other sources, I think Nakos and Lucci are the only two that are really credible that have come forward and said anything, and I'm going off of that. So I don't know what kind of situation this is. This is a leave of absence situation. Nakos used the word temporary. I think Lucci said something about the door being open for him to come back whenever he's ready. Micah didn't decommit. We went through it. Oh, howdy, Cooper. Good to see you, man. By the way, guys, we're going to talk about the team culture tonight. If y'all felt that there was a culture shift in year one, my last video I put out, I did grades for A&M as a whole, the season as a whole. Mike Elko in year one by proxy, I graded him. I gave him a B-, and I cited a lot of things like, I thought 8-4 was a decent record. The ending of the year sucked. That's what knocked it down a peg. I mean, if you had gone 8-4 and you won the last two games, you feel totally different about 8-4. I predicted 9-3. The way it went down sucked. But I also cited the reported and what we were told was a change of culture in the locker room, in the program in a year one. I thought it was a great base to build a program off of, but I got some pushback on that. A lot of people saying that culture is overrated. There's no evidence that the culture has shifted. I really want to hear from you guys in that regard tonight, so I'm opening the calls, and you can talk about Micah if you want, but I really want to hear what your take is on the year one culture shift, if there was one, and if that even means anything for A&M. So the call-in link, it's already pinned in the chat. Y'all click that. Really easy to use. Click that. You'll be prompted to enter a waiting room. Just turn on the microphone function. You don't have to use the camera function. And just enter the waiting room, and I'll pull you guys in one by one to talk about year one culture. And if you want to give your year one grade, you can do that too. I already see a couple people waiting. I see Theo. I see Cooper. If you want to call in and chime in tonight, it's a great time to do it. We'll be doing this all off season, so anytime you want to call in, we're here. What's up, SB Hustler? Good to see you. Pete Nako said that Hudson has the full backing of A&M. That's great. That's been reported by Lucci as well. In so many words. Let's hope he comes back and be the player we hope. Absolutely. I won't be concerned about this until it's July. Nothing's changed. Exactly, Noble. Exactly. They're going to keep recruiting the position. I think they were already going to do that. No reason to be overly concerned about the roster right now. You can be concerned about Micah. Hopefully everything he's going through is okay. We don't know. We really don't know what's happening. So you just wish for the best. Ver says, what the heck? You're just finding out now. I know. It's a shock. It's a shock when you first see it. You said it, Noble. In the meantime, give us all the other younger wide receivers to step up. Yep. What's up, Jeb? I think a lot of dudes just don't like doing school assignments. Well, apparently he's staying in school. So he's still enrolled at A&M, still in classes. I mean, that's still happening. So I don't think that's actually the case here. Yeah, the receiver from Penn State's going to come visit right now. They're going to keep recruiting the position. They were going to do it anyway. What up, Ted? David? I'm not going to stay away from it. Y'all can read it. I'm staying away from David on that one. What up, Troy? Good to see you, man. Jeb. They just showed us practice videos yesterday, too. Moffitt giving dudes mental issues. Workouts are so damn hard. I don't think that's what's going on, but that's funny. Matt Dickerson, good to see you. Ben Capatillo, good to see you. Troy says 24-13 Ohio State. That's a good score prediction. I actually really like it. I think Ohio State has cooled off a little bit. At least they showed it in the Texas game. They weren't clicking like they were in the two games before. Credit to Texas' defense. But Notre Dame has a damn good defense of their own. Now, I think there's a world where Notre Dame can hold them to 24 or fewer points. But can Notre Dame score enough against the Ohio State defense? That's the big question. That's a good score prediction right there, Troy. I like it a lot. Culture is huge. It changes the entire mental makeup of a team. Absolutely. Kyle, good to see you, Kyle. Hudson leaving Tech so quickly was interesting in my opinion, so I'm interested to see what happens next. Let's see. It's going to play out. We don't know the information yet. Hudson's just homesick, guys. It's all good. It's all good. Matthew Gonzaba has the scoop here. He's just homesick. Noble's going to hop in a bit. Awesome. He's staying on as a student. Exactly. They said to really love football in college because it's basically a full-time job. Yeah, man. I'll be honest. I didn't love it enough to stick with it all the way through. Plus, I was undersized for my position, so it didn't work out. I was only able to play 1 year, but I know exactly what that's like. I know exactly what that's like. It's overwhelming if you're not, made privy to the duties before. And every time I talk to my younger cousins who are playing college ball, friends who were going to play college ball, I tell them just to be ready. Be ready to be mentally drained because it is truly a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. job every single day. It's all-encompassing. It's stacked on top of school, whatever school is to some of these student athletes. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. And if that is the issue here, I can empathize. Hopefully get the Penn State receiver. That'd be big to Badger. That'd be big. 6-7 more months till A&M football. Dude, we got baseball. We'll start talking about baseball, I think, in a couple shows from now. I'm doing some preliminary research and looking into the new guys. It's so exciting what's going on in baseball this year, guys. I'm going to do a lot of baseball coverage. I've always liked baseball, but this last year with the run and then the finals and Omaha and the characters of the team and then the Schloss gate, it moved up. It ranked up. Aggie baseball ranked up for me. I don't know if I trust the regime anymore. Coordinator's still there losing games the way we did. I don't know, man. I totally understand your trust being shaken, and there's a lot of prove it left in this staff. We'll talk about it. We'll give you guys a chance to talk about it too. I played right guard, right tackle. Mostly right guard, subbed in at right tackle when there were injuries. I played baseball at the D3 level, and I thought that shit was overwhelming. I can only imagine D1. I wonder how his experience at Texas Tech was, because Coach McGuire is supposed to be a culture guy for them as well. Yeah, very excited for baseball season. Hunter Erb had to step away from the team at times this fall due to his father's health, but it wasn't reported at all because he's a backup lineman. Exactly. That's a really good point, Matt. It's going to get amplified. He's a 5-star, high-profile recruit. It's going to spread like wildfire, so that's why it got reported. I think this is handled internally. If there's not whispers, if there's not rumblings, this doesn't get out. So it got out, and media members have to report it. They can't just let it run as a rumor. It has to be reported. So yeah, guys, keep giving your takes. Keep chatting what you make of the year one culture. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm going to give you guys a chance to call in. This is your show, so hit that link, call in. Be a good time. Yeah. I'll be honest, my talking point, I usually write some talking points out. That got cut short by the news about Micah Hudson because I had a lot more to talk about the culture, but the Micah Hudson thing was a little bit of a distraction. I was looking into that all afternoon. But, yeah. So, the question, was there a culture shift at A&M in year one? How would we know? Does it even matter? And I told you guys I recently put out my B- grade for Elko in year one, and a lot of people deemed that grade very generous, and I told you the couple reasons why I gave it the B-, but the one we're talking about here is because I gave a little bit of a boost to that grade because I was under the impression and I felt like the culture had kind of been reworked and reestablished in year one. Preseason. The SEC media days, Shamar Turner, Torin York, Trey Zune, we heard all about how accountability and buy-in were way up. We also heard from, and I'll play this clip in a minute, from Stanford Steve, which is a weird source, I know, that when he was visiting A&M for the Notre Dame week, College Game Day was in town, therefore Stanford Steve was in town, and he went to practice, and he talked to Elko. He said that a lot of the duties, a lot of what they were focusing on was just reworking bad habits, that sometimes Thursday nights before games, well, those were nights to go out and have fun. But Stanford Steve said when he was in practice, it was made very clear that would not be happening under Mike Elko's regime. And that what Elko told him was, yeah, man, we're working on X's and O's here, but really we're just trying to fix bad habits. That was done from day one. And Elko had his work cut out for him, righting the wrong that had kind of permeated the team before. And we have heard since Jimbo and his regime left College Station that some of that stuff was not buttoned up. Some of that stuff was not supremely organized, and that players were getting away with a little bit too much. Not to totally dog on the previous regime, but that stuff has come out. That stuff has been made known. And I think player interviews have made it apparent that there is a different set of expectations this year, at least in how they operate day to day. So, to me, this season tone was set before we even saw a game, and that was that habits were being formed, new habits. And we heard about, like, quite tangibly, literally, we heard that players in the offseason were put into groups, not by position, kind of arbitrarily made groups, and that if one player within each group was late to a meeting, didn't give the right effort, didn't show up to a workout, that the whole group suffered. So obviously that stuff was stamped in, and we're very, very well aware of that. But of course, like I said, I got pushback calling that a reason for optimism, grading it in the B margin instead of the C margin, like a lot of other people called this season a C-, C or a C+. I called it a B-. Because does culture even matter if you're not winning or losing? And that's a question I present to you guys. And at the end of the day, quite honestly, over time, if it doesn't equate to wins and losses, I don't know that it does matter. But with what he's done this year, and kind of emphasizing things that weren't in the forefront before, I think that sets up a great base for the future. And I think that really sets players up for success in regards to development, being totally bought in to what they're being taught, how they're being trained, the Moffitt method. That's a big deal. The team next year will have 2 years. The returning players will have 2 years under Tommy Moffitt. I don't think anybody in the chat right now would deny that that's a big freaking deal. One of the best to ever do it. That'll be a big deal. So I give it to you guys. Call in. Let me know. Did you feel a culture shift in year one? Does that even matter? And if you want, what even is culture to you? Is culture staying out of trouble? Is culture being a good teammate? Is culture just showing up to meetings, being where you're supposed to be? I think with Elko, what he's talked about is he's not out to, create choir boys or add choir boys to the team. That's the word he's used. He's not looking for choir boys. He's looking for guys that are coming in ready to work, roll up their sleeves and go to work every day. He's talked about that from day one. That's the first damn thing he said when he got on campus. And he's emphasizing that blue-collar mentality that really wasn't here the last couple of years. And I've talked about this many times. I thought players under the previous regime, like a Weidemeyer, even an A-Chain, even a Spiller, guys that we think of as relatively successful, I don't think anybody reached their capacity, reached their potential here. And I think Elko's really, really making a point to get ahead of that now, lay the groundwork for that in the future. But of course, as I just said in the chat a couple minutes ago, jury's still out. Because this won't matter if you don't eventually win football games, because that is what every coach will eventually be judged upon. So that's what I wanted to get out to you guys. I feel as though we were told by enough people who were in the building, not only insiders, but players, coaches, recounting conversations with Elko and Stanford Steve. It's such a weird source to bring this show, but Stanford Steve's conversation with Elko, that this has been an emphasis from day one. So guys, let me hear from you. Let's see what the chat's saying. Let me know how you feel about the culture. Start typing now. Let me know, and then we'll get right into the calls. Oh, let's see. Jeb's surprised no coach has been left or been fired. There's no question that there are questions about the staff and their capabilities and their ability to put the team in a position to win. But it's on them to go out and prove it. And in a year two, there's a lot of room for improvement, typically year one to year two. So yeah, it sounds like everyone's sticking around. I don't think Bateman's going anywhere. Bateman has been on recruiting visits. We've gotten compliments for Bateman by Bateman by recruits. He's sticking around, guys. He's sticking around. Selfishly, I'm kind of glad some of the Jimbo guys are moving on. Yeah, maybe guys got comfortable, and maybe guys aren't wanting to be part of this new business-like approach. Maybe they like the more laid-back, feel that there was before. It's kind of turned out to be. It's kind of shown to be that was the case. All right. Let's see what else you guys are saying. All right, David. In many organizations, culture is used to distract stakeholders from focusing on substandard results. Interpret that however you choose. That's true, but it's year one. I mean, you got to let this thing play out, right? And I believe the culture pieces we've talked about are important building blocks to developing players. I think it's a big deal. Greetings from San Ignacio, Texas. Thanks for being here, Matt Myers. Ethan says, while we have evidence, it'll just come down to them to prove that they have culture. Absolutely. Absolutely. All I'm saying is I feel like that foundation has been placed. And whatever building that comes of this foundation, whatever they're able to put together, that will ultimately be what any coaching staff is judged upon. I do believe this team this year had a Jimbo hangover, just used to losing. Yeah, possibly. And a lot of things were better this year. I mean, you talk about, just game management, timeouts, getting special teams on the field without having to burn a timeout, getting in and out of formations was better. Penalties were still up, but not a lot of procedural pre-snap stuff. That was better. Some things were better, but not enough to win, the games you wanted to win. So that still has to happen. I'm tired of the 8-4 narrative. Me too, dude. Me too. As Josh Pate says, you can't microwave your way to a championship program. Exactly. And everybody who knows what they're talking about, Josh Pate included, still thinks the world of Elko and what he can do here. The ending of the season sucked. I understand the offensive shortcomings late in the year, losing Le'Veon Moss, throwing in a quarterback. The quarterback failure the team with Connor Wigman, whether Connor Wigman himself failed, whether the team failed Connor Wigman, whatever happened there, that's for sure a red flag, and they have to get past that. But I do think they landed on a good situation with Marcel Reed subsequently after that. So we shall see. That was a big reason for some of the shortcomings, but losing Le'Veon offensively was huge. The defensive collapse, another really, really big red flag. They're going to have to right that ship. And you know Elko, the defensive mind that he is, the way he responded in that post-game press conference after the USC game, you know he's rolling his sleeves up and going to work on that every day this offseason. You know that's priority one for him right now. All right. I think we had a couple more pieces we can be a playoff team. It's just hard. I mean, yeah, definitely possible. Tough schedule to navigate. A lot of players that are coming back have to improve as well. It does sound like EJ's coming back. And by the way, I think Trey Zune is back, guys. He didn't announce anything. Man, a few words. Didn't say he's coming back. Didn't say he's not. But he didn't declare. He's not in the pool of declared underclassmen or, non-senior players. And the deadline is coming past. So we're getting all 5 starters at the O-line back next year. Offense could be special. Running game could be special. Colin Klein got to figure out some of his situational play calling. Adjustments in game. But the personnel, if Marcel Reed gets like a 5 to 10% improvement this year, this offense could be really, really good and even carry, a learning subpar defense a little bit further than it would otherwise. So let's see. Losing Moss was horrible. Trey Zune's definitely back. Absolutely. All right, guys. Let's get into the calls. Anybody wants to call in, now's a great time to get into the room. I have 2 people waiting. Otherwise, we'll call it a quick show. Theo, you're on with Drew. How you feeling, man?
I am feeling good. How are you?
I'm not bad at all. What you playing right now?
I am on NCAA 25.
That's right. Awesome, man. Well, hey, where do you want to go first? Do you want to go straight to Micah? Do you want to get that out of the way and then go right into culture?
Yeah, we can get Micah out of the way. I think it's hard for young men to be thrust into a position of such stardom and then have a devastating knee injury. And ACLs are devastating to someone who's never been injured before, like Micah, in that capacity. And then also have to worry about transferring and all the stuff that he's been into the last, let's just say last 24 months, right? Last 2 years.
Yeah.
Then you add in the fact that you're now transferring schools. You don't know really anyone in College Station except your teammates and maybe a few people from Temple or Waco or that area.
Yeah.
That may be there. You're away from your family. It's the holidays. It's just, it all adds up. And even as a coach, when I was at ETU and I watched these guys, you're not lying. It's a 6 to 6. It's actually a 6 to 10 job because they have meetings or things at 6 a.m., lifts at 6 a.m. Then you go to class at 7. You go to class all the way till 11. You have lunch. Maybe you're lucky for an hour lunch. Then you jump into practice at 1. Then you're out of practice at 3. You turn around and go eat dinner. And then by 5 o'clock, you're back in the meeting rooms, breaking down film from that day's practice and or next week's opponent. And then by 7 o'clock, you get sent back to your dorm, and you've still got to do your homework for the school day.
Yeah, and I remember when I was playing, I had 6 a.m. practice, and then they had lifting blocks. So there were like 4 different lifting blocks. Not everybody lifted at once because the weight room couldn't support everybody where I was. And my lifting block was 45 minutes after practice. So I had like a very short layover between practice and lifting. I would try to get breakfast in that, and then I would go lift, and then I would be in school, and then you have meetings, and then maybe, more meetings, and then school, and then bedtime. I mean, it's all encompassing. It's every day. You're dreaming about it. You're thinking it, and you're right. Someone who's going through a little bit of up and down, it could be tough. But again, we don't know exactly what he's going for. No reason has been given. We just know it's a personal leave.
So I can understand taking a personal leave and trying to regain your mind, right?
Yeah.
And, sometimes you after experiencing things for a year or two, you kind of lose the love of the game, maybe.
Sure.
I'm not saying that's his case. I'm just saying that sometimes it happens. It happens to a lot of players that we don't even hear about.
Yep.
So just let the kid be himself. Let the kid figure out what he wants and what he's doing, and don't hate him for it. We all make this same thing in regular day lives. We may not like the job we have in a year, so we decide to go get another one. We may not like where we're living in 6 months, so we go out and go get another one.
Yeah.
We may not like the car we drive, we go out and buy another one. He's doing pretty much the same thing, except it's just kind of related to football and sports. That's all it is. Let the kid be.
Absolutely. And
Uh,
I'll say this on X anyway. I would say 90% of Aggies that I've seen have been very supportive of the situation. There's a loud 10% that's not. I would say most of the gnashing of teeth is coming from panic on the receiver room. But we still have a lot more to add there. We still have players that can develop. They've done a great job in the portal so far, even without Micah right now. Just let it play out. That's all I'm saying.
Not just that, but the talent in the receiver room is ridiculous.
It's good. It's just a lot,
I
very, very
was
young in a lot of ways, but it's really high.
mhm.
It's really high,
It's
very talented.
that ceiling is up there. If we reach just 75% of what the ceiling is this year at the wide receiver room, I wouldn't be surprised to see a monumental leap into the top 50
Yeah.
of passing offenses.
Yep.
Um, which would be what, almost an 80 spot jump
Yeah.
in
Something
a
like that.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, having said that, I will say that part of the whole spotlight thing is coming from the fact that Micah does have NIL deals.
Sure.
Micah does that money stuff is going to play into it because people are going to pocket watch and complain about why we're paying people who aren't playing, yada yada yada. And unfortunately for the kid, that's a part of today's society and situation. Um, like I said multiple times over the last year, I've kind of pulled away my own fandom of college football as I was before, um, because it is still almost professional.
Yeah.
Your players are still getting paid. You still have full ride scholarships. You still have food vouchers. You have phone vouchers. Like the amount of resources granted to a Division One athlete is amazing,
Yes.
and they deserve every penny of it for everything they put into it. But also coming into that, you do have to play into the factor that that's going to also put a bigger spotlight on you now that it is what it is in this era.
100%.
So
100%. You're absolutely
um,
right. It changes everything.
I just hope in the end he gets to figure out what he wants to do and he does what he wants to do and does it right. I don't want to see him going off the dark path. I don't want him, doing something crazy, etc. There's just he has
And
too much ahead of himself.
and there is a dark path available, and it's very, very tough to navigate away from that, despite whatever he's going through. Conversations like this that he has no say and that he has no control in, conversations across the country that happen about him, he's obviously aware of that and going to see that, and that's going to weigh heavily on him. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of, warranted or unwarranted, very much unwarranted. There's going to be a level of shame. There's going to be a level of maybe wondering if he made the right choice, and that's tough for a young guy to deal
Mm-hmm.
with. So we really, really wish him the best. It's a tough path. No one
Yep,
knows exactly what he's going through, and I'm good to leave it there if you want to go on to culture.
that's exactly where I want to leave it too. I'll just ask everyone in Aggie Nation say a prayer for him.
Yep.
In Aggie Land, I'm sorry, not Nation, but in Aggie Land, say a prayer.
Yeah. We're not Aggie Nation,
And
man. We're Aggie
no,
Land.
no, 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 we're not UC Davis or New Mexico State.
Right.
So Aggie Land, say a prayer for the young man. Help let him get his mind together and let him and keep him in your hearts and prayers.
Amen.
Um, Now moving forward to culture.
Yes, that was the intention of the show. And then, of course, we have to address this. So, your take on culture, what you felt in year one. I know there's a lot of context needed. Where are you at with it?
I would have said absolutely culture changed if you would have stopped the season after the LSU game.
Right.
Here's the thing though. The same thing that's killed Jimbo and the whole entire time he was here, except for what 21, 20 in 2020,
Yeah.
is we always seem to play down to our competition
Down and up.
when and up, but I would say arguably down to our competition after we've reached, and I would say after we've reached the statement game.
Sure.
And when we finally make a statement, we just seem to call it in and go, okay, that's enough. We made our statement. We made our stamp. We're one of the best teams in the nation. But then we still have 5 weeks to go in the season, and you lose 4 of the 5.
Yep. A lot of evidence for that this year. And
And sorry,
no, go, I was just going to say to that point. I mean, you think about the couple of feel-good wins we had this year. I think Florida was one that we were pretty excited about, especially after the way Notre Dame went. You kind of reworked your running game, and that really shone through in that game. Well, you follow that up with a pretty bad performance versus Bowling Green. You won the game because it was Bowling Green. You were able to find a way to win it. You had chances to lose it, but you won the game. But then you have the high of Missouri, and then you kind of scrape by Mississippi State. Then you have the super ultra high of LSU, and then the 4-game, Power 5 losing streak to close the year. And I mean, I'd like to believe those are old habits, old mentalities, old kind of ways of going about their business that's still being worked out, and that there's still more to gain from even the players that have had this issue over the last couple of years, and that's still being built. But it happened this year most recently.
and I would be more willing to give, like you did, you gave the credit to Elko in the aspect that it could very well be that. That's why if I was grading the season, I would say it's somewhere um, between a C plus and a B. Look,
Okay.
I called it. I said it was 8-4 at the beginning of the year. I didn't think it would be the way it happened, but it was still an 8-4 season, like I said it was.
Yeah.
So I can't sit here and say that it was an F of a season when I expected the season.
Yeah.
I can't hear and say it was an A of a season because I can't say that they overachieved my expectations.
Right.
So they're right there on what I thought they would be, which to me makes it seem like it's a C plus, B minus, B plus error. Considering that, well, B, I won't say B plus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Considering that A, it's year one, B, the transfer portal craziness, C, the whole thing that went down with Mike Stoops and then Elko. Then you have all the stuff happening in the season with the injuries and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're fighting culture issues that are rebuilding. And so, yeah, B minus, C plus. I can see
Yeah,
anywhere in that range.
you're right with me then. You're right with me. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Yes, it was one win under what I predicted. I thought 9 wins was attainable, and I felt the same way after LSU. I certainly did, and the way the season ended sucked. And
Go get my drink
defensively,
and have some mine.
I'm about to post my defensive grades. I don't know that we should have been necessarily super surprised by deficiencies in the secondary. The collapse at the end of the year, the secondary was disappointing. But that, like to your point about the portal madness, that was a fully rebuilt secondary through the portal. And that finally came to bite us in the butt, especially after losing Chappelle, that set us behind. And then not having Will Lee, who kind of protected Des Ricks, I would say, throughout the year a little bit. So did having Javen Thomas as an option to sub Des Ricks. Well, I think all of your shortcomings were just amplified down the stretch of the year. Against Lincoln Riley, who's a great passing coach, against Lincoln Riley's best receiver, and we saw the worst of it in the latest game, and that's just going to ring through our minds the entire offseason, unfortunately, the way it ended. Will cause a lot of doubt and question. But last question for you, Theo. Do you think that the culture he's established increases their chance of long-term success? Do you think he's done enough in that regard?
That's to be determined.
Okay.
It's the same thing at Duke. You know, he came in, set a culture of winning. They expected to win last year. They without Riley Leonard, they still were competitive and even I think upset like Louisville or something. So it all depends on what they do going forward.
Yep.
Now, next year, looking at the schedule, etc., I'm still in the same 8-4, 9-3 window. Probably more like 9-3. I expect us to at least grow a game or two
Yeah.
with experience. Um, with an offensive line being all five back and so on. With another year under Moffitt, like my expectations next year, even though it's very road heavy, which is why my floor is 8-4, is lower than what I would like to say on any normal season. I can still see 9-3, 10-2 as the minimum floor for some people. I
Yeah.
can see that. I can understand that. And then, just like this year, I don't see a team on the schedule that I'm afraid of.
Right.
I don't. Notre Dame's going to lose a bunch of talent, especially at quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and that whole entire secondary.
They bring back the running backs, both of them.
Really, I thought.
No, both Price and Love are back, unfortunately. So their running game will be back. And the reason
Okay,
I'm nervous
yeah,
about them, it's there, but the running game, and we're rebuilding that D line. So that's my kind
yes.
of nervous point right there.
Um, but even then, like at the same time, there's still things that we can take advantage
For
there.
sure, for sure.
If we take advantage of it, we win. Um, everyone's talking about LSU and their revamp. Okay, they revamped in the portal last year too, and
Yeah.
they still had a bad season. Everyone's talking about how Texas is just keep going in this recruiting cycle and this recruiting services, but they still have to replace two tackles, a guard, and then possibly three corners and some safeties and a linebacker.
Yeah.
That's a lot to replace by the time we get to. And even then, this year, I would still contend, and people will hate me for saying this, but if we kick the field goals, that game feels a whole lot different because there's multiple times in that game where we would be playing with the lead and Kyle Field would be going absolutely berserk, even though it may only be 3-0. It only may be 9-6.
Yeah.
That type of difference in putting the pressure on the other team made a huge difference to me. Now, I'm not criticizing Elko for making his choices. He made his choices. I understand why he made his choices. We have to live with it.
Yes,
To
sir.
me, I would have arguably took the points and I would have put the pressure on Texas to respond.
Yep.
But that's just a difference in coaching philosophy. That's a difference in coaches' thoughts. And I can respect what Elko tried to do and say. I respect what Elko's trying to set foot for this program. It's very much similar to the way I felt that Jimbo was setting from, what was it, 17, 18, 19, going into 20. It's a very similar feel defensively. A bunch of talent defensively, some young talent that needs to grow and develop at the safety positions. Leon O'Neal, hello.
Yeah.
Donovan Wilson, hello. You know, um, Watts, there's some talent there at the secondary that needed to develop and needed to learn how to communicate inside of Elko's system. We saw the same issue pop up now. I'm willing to give Elko 3 to 4 years to do what he did when he was here then. If after year 3 or year 4 we're not at the 10-2 level at a consistent basis, fine. I'm okay with moving on at that point. But I'm not going to sit here and freaking hold expectations for him at this moment. I'm going to at least give him 2 years to build his team. By year 3, I'll start holding that 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 expectation. As of right now, I'm just kind of chilling, sitting back, watching what he does, watching how he does it, watching to see if it's going to translate correctly,
Yeah.
and if we can see signs of it growing each and every day, every week, and every year.
Yep. Yep.
And that's where I am.
All right, Theo. I appreciate it, man. You have a good night.
Yes,
Thanks for
sir.
chiming in, sir.
Anytime, buddy. Have a good one. Good luck. Go
Adios.
Kings.
Go Kings. All right, man. Later. All right, thank you, Theo. Real quick on the chat, then we'll get into Cooper, Noble, and Paul, who are waiting. The Badger says, I think after the LSU game, defense play calling switched to giving Jay Bateman more control. I feel like Bateman was in control the whole year. I don't know. The D-line really took a nosedive after that game. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I know there's a lot of, observations about the continued use of stunts, slants, all that kind of stuff instead of just going straight up one-on-one matchups. I don't know. It's hard to say. The defense definitely took a nosedive, but it wasn't just assignments, though. Think about South Carolina. Tackling was the name of that game. I think the same could be said for some of Auburn. I remember on that game-tying drive at the end of the game, Peyton Thorne escaping a sack, and that's Peyton Thorne. Texas, you could have had Quinn Ewers down. Instead, he gets like a 40-yard gain early in that game when it's still in the balance. I think there's a lot more than assignment that went into defense, man. I don't know what it was. It was a big-time collapse. Jeb says to add one more corner. I'm not high on Javen Thomas anymore, nor do I trust him for long periods of time. Look, these guys, that was still a sophomore, though, man. First year, like, kind of starting down, like, playing down to down. I'm willing to try these guys. You've added 2 DBs. I think that's plenty. I'm of the opinion that you still have plenty of growth to go around in the DB room, and adding 2 was a perfect number. They can add more if they want. It wouldn't be a bad thing, but I'm good with rolling with it, honestly, Jeb. What was the story of Micah pulling out? There's really no story yet. All we know is that he is stepping away from football, still at A&M, but stepping away from football. And Pete Nakos used the word temporarily. He's welcome to come back. That's all we know, Salty Matt. But you can rewind to the beginning after we're done here when a little bit of a spiel about it. You go 8-4, fans are going to lose faith in Elko. Well, that's a shame because 8-4 is very much on the table this coming year. And depending on how that 8-4 goes, and if we see massive improvement and still lose these tough road games, I don't know, man. 8-4 is so on the table for next year, unfortunately. The schedule is that hard. We're fighting from behind with where the defense was last year. It needs to improve a lot. Offense could be pretty damn good, and that's kind of my reason for optimism. And then any kind of whatever you can improve on defense will be great too. There's a path for better than 8-4, but I'm saying 8-4 is very much on the table. Notre Dame will have a veteran quarterback next season. I talked to Notre Dame fans. They're very, very high on their quarterback room, so maybe they'll find a guy. Maybe they'll still have learning curves. We won't know. I think 8-4 is the best we can do until proven otherwise. I don't know about that statement. All I'm saying is 8-4 is very possible right now. It's playoffs or bust next. I'm just not there. I'm just not saying it's playoffs or bust. I think I'd be happy with 9-3 next year in a bowl win. I'd be very happy with that. I think the year after that, you can get into that. The month of November is exactly where we have a ton of depth. That month is not kind to A&M. Yeah, that showed. SB says, after watching some tape, I think we underutilized Noah Thomas. He had our most explosive passing plays, was open way more than people realize. I think we'll see he's the real deal soon. Yes, we missed him. He was open more than, the stats would indicate. He didn't get the ball as much as he was actually available to get the ball. And I think we saw very much a focused effort to involve him in the bowl game. And I think it worked out. He had the one drop, but he had a bunch of targets in the red zone, which he was always capable of being that guy. And I do feel like he was underutilized this year. And I think a lot of that had to do with, first of all, being in a year one system, but mostly dealing with quarterback shuffle. You lost chemistry when you lost Connor. You lost everything you were working with when you lost Connor. Everything changed. And that's probably partially why receivers and Noah Thomas specifically were underutilized, SB. The slow starts were annoying, very annoying. One thing about Elko is that if one of his team's problems is defense, he can fix the problem. That's a really big reason for optimism right there. He will not let his baby be bad. You heard him in the postgame presser, and of course you can be mad and passionate and all that stuff, every emotion towards it, but you got to work to fix it, and I think he's doing that. I think they're going to be better next year, but how much better? Is Brady Cook gone? No, Brady Cook's here. I don't know why Brady Cook would be gone. Brady Cook's around. A&M fans are impatient. That's true. That's very much true. And yeah, things might get uncomfortable with 8-4, but I'm trying to say that that's very possible this year. No time for chemistry to develop between quarterback and receiver. Marcel was still developing week by week. Exactly. All right, getting back into the calls. Cooper, you're on with Drew. Good to hear from you, Cooper. Thanks for coming to all the watch parties and stuff. I appreciate you, man. Where do you want to go first with it?
Probably go culture. I think honestly, I saw a big culture shift from the Notre Dame game going until all the way to the South Carolina game in that stretch. Um, I feel like the way we came back against LSU, that just doesn't happen with the Jimbo team, especially with his culture and all that. I mean, that was a Mike Elko win for sure.
Yeah, it was gritty. It was run heavy. It was making a tough decision benching the quarterback. And you're right. I mean, I saw the way the players walked off that Notre Dame field. That was a dejecting loss at home, hype building through all of fall camp, through all the offseason. Game one under Elko. Power came back, and then they lost it, and that could have spiraled. You could have lost to Florida. Florida proved to be a pretty good team. You could have lost um, to Missouri, and they ended up being a 10-win team. You handled your business versus Missouri, and then that LSU game. It's just the collapse at the end is going to be very much in the forefront of our minds. But it's impressive to do what they did in that regard. I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like towards the end, it was just hard to watch at sometimes.
Yeah,
Like that South Carolina game, really hard to watch. Um, the Texas game, I was there. It was so hard to watch. And then of course losing to USC, giving up. I mean, you were leading what 28 to something at
yeah.
half. I mean,
It was like in the late third, early fourth. You were up like what 28 to 14, 28 to 17,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. I don't. I mean, that just really. I was watching it from my couch, and it was like I stayed up all night for this. Like, made me so mad.
Yeah, yeah, I know, man. Well, do you want to give quick thoughts on Micah, or do you think we covered that enough?
Yeah, I mean, I know Micah probably hasn't had the best situation so far. I mean, of course, who knows? He could have some family issues going on, which that's what I believe is happening is family issues, and that's why he's stepping away. But yeah, I mean, you never know, really. You never know till you're in the guy's shoes.
Yeah, yeah. We wish him the best. We wish him the best. All right. Anything else on your
Yep.
mind, Cooper?
I don't know. Honestly, I mean, I think this transfer portal haul has been really good this year so far. I mean, you've gotten a couple blocking tight ends. I mean, all the recruits you've gotten from high school are really good. You got some gadget players. I mean, Jerome Miles. Um, I just really think that after this year, this next year of Elko fully having like control. I mean, all the Jimbo guys will almost all be out of the program. Um,
Yeah,
I think you pretty much just say 9-win season. Here we go. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think there's any more excuses to go 8-4 after this next year.
yeah. 100%, 100%. And you know what? I think 9-4, 9-3 would be a great goal this year. I just, I think there's still a world where they come short of that, but I think that's what we want to do, and I think it's very
Hmm.
attainable. It's a tough schedule, but I think with some of the continuity you have on the offense and then understanding your shortcomings on defense, I think they can do it. And yeah, I think the groundwork was set this year. I think there's a lot of room to improve with a lot of players that are coming back. Even some of those Jimbo guys that have bought into Elko could take that next step. I mean, we saw Bryce Anderson have very much a down year. And,
Hmm.
we know the talent he has. He could come back, maybe go back to nickel, maybe play safety and just be what we thought he could be. That's still on the table. And again, like I'm happy bringing a lot of these guys back. We lost some. Coaches have to get their guys. That's true. But I think after 2 years, any guy can become your guy. So we'll see what happens, Cooper. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we can get
Uh-huh.
9 this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all the Jimbo guys you saw him recruit. I mean, big names, but you look at how their careers have turned out. I mean, I think it was what's his name, Denver Harris.
Yeah.
He's on his fourth team. I mean, and then you see T.J. Shanahan was the only guy that really had problems within the
Yeah.
program this year. I mean, Jimbo recruited him, so I mean, and he's out of the system. So I think he's really recruiting good guys, good players that can help elevate the program and just have a good like just kind of like a military style
Yeah.
program, and that's
Absolutely.
really what you want. I mean, at A&M, like guys like Datwin and
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys from the RC Slocum days, and Jackie Sherrill. Those are the guys that you want at A&M to buy into the whole culture and everything, because that's really what A&M is about and the
Hell yeah.
traditions.
Hell yeah. And Elko's talked about that. Like, he wants that kind of guy. That's the kind of guy he's looking for when he's bringing players in. He wants guys who are willing to come in and work and improve and develop. And that's been a priority of his. We've heard him talk about it. So, yeah, I think we're going to see the payoff of that hopefully as soon as next year. But jury's out. Let's see what he does, man. Cooper, anything else before we close it out? Appreciate you calling in, man.
Just God bless Drew Tamu.
Thanks, Cooper, man. Hey, you gonna be here for the next watch party Monday night championship game?
Definitely. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Hell yeah. See you there, Cooper. Thanks for calling. Later.
Yes, sir. See you.
All right. Let's catch up with the chat real quick, and then we'll get into Noble, then Paul. It's made everybody better, but Georgia, talking about the portal here, it's made everybody a little bit better, but Georgia and Ohio State defenses are mostly 3-year guys. Championship teams are going to be built on development still. Even Texas has a bunch of guys that have been around a long time. I mean, these teams that are making it at the highest level, they have guys that have stuck around for sure. What do you mean Micah Hudson steps away, wasn't here from the start? He was here. He's enrolled in classes. He's staying at A&M. He's just not participating in football activities right now. That's all we know. All we know is that he stepped away for personal reasons, away from football, and that he has an open door to return. Pete Nakos, the first guy to break the news from On3, he called it a temporary leave, so we'll see what happens. He has the opportunity to come back once he figures out whatever he's going through. We don't know exactly what that is, James. That's all we know right now. Very minimal information given. Anything else beyond that, I think, is largely speculation, but we'll see what comes forward. But it might not even be our business, so maybe we won't. That's all we know. We could go 9-3, just have to win road games. Yeah. You gotta learn how to do that. We won a couple. We got over that hump this year early with Mississippi State and Florida. And Florida, decent team, but not as good as they were at the end of the season when we played them, to be fair. You got to do that to a higher level this next year with some of the road opponents. All right. Yeah, we just talked about it a little bit. Hey, after we're done live, James, go back to the beginning of the show. I talked about it for like 5 to 10 minutes, but I gave you the cliff notes just there. Like to add another pass-catching tight end to elevate the room. Just reemphasizing, I saw Coyote Armstrong live this last weekend at the Navy All-American Bowl, formerly Army All-American Bowl. He's ready to be a pass catcher right away. I think it's the blocking and stuff for him. I don't think he's ready to be a full, well-rounded tight end just yet. But if you need a pass catcher that's a big body, I mean, it could be Coyote early. But, yeah, they could add another after they lost Donovan for sure. I could see us beating Arkansas and Mizzou on the road, but at home versus Florida, home South Carolina is pretty rough. I want us to protect Kyle Field this year. I've said this a couple times, like my fan, greedy, sitting on the couch goal is to go, 7-0 at Kyle Field this year and let the chips fall where they may on the road, those 5 road games, maybe beating Arkansas, gets you to 8 wins. If you can find one more against the tougher opponents, I think that's a solid year. But let's defend Kyle Field this year. That's what I want to see. And then find some success on the road outside of that. Because, yeah, Florida, South Carolina are going to be good, but A&M's in a better spot than them. For whatever it's worth, A&M has better championship odds than both of those teams. So whatever that's worth, that's always the case. But we have the talent and the capability and now the continuity to do it, Troy. Teams like Ohio State go to the playoffs because they're used to big games. You want to win the big games, start going to them. Yeah, Ohio State usually wins the big games unless it's Michigan. Sorry, Ohio State fans, I know that sucks. But y'all can't beat Michigan. What's going on, man? What's going on? Arkansas may be bad next season. Exactly. It's an opportunity. I appreciate you, man. Love the videos, though. Yeah, thanks for coming by, James. Appreciate you, man. Linebackers or DBs we're going to bring in. There's been no smoke that they're looking at linebackers. I think they could add one because you lose the Shields. I believe you lose the Shields. But they bring back everyone else. They bring back Scooby, Torian. They bring back Sanford. 3 guys in your rotation, 2 of which are starters. But then I think we want to see Lockhart and Jernigan play. I think Noah Mikael has a great future. He could be a backup this year. I think they're very happy. I'm happy with this linebacker room. So I don't think that linebacker needs to be priority unless something just comes up and it's like, oh, we can add a guy. Let's add him. But I think they're focusing on their priorities. And, I mean, it's been described as surgical, the way that Elko and company have gone about this portal session. They're only addressing the needs, really. Defensive ends, a DT, receivers, a couple DBs. It's the glaring holes they're trying to hit hard because I think we can get by at linebacker, man. I think we can get by at offensive line. I think we can get by at running back. Yeah, you could add a guy here or there, but focus on your priorities. Those aren't done yet. We ain't done yet. Sorry. Noble, you're on with Drew. How's it going, man?
What's going on, Drew? What's going on, TMU, Drew Land?
TMU. Hold on. Am I muted? You got me?
Oh, can you hear me?
Uh-oh, I think I might have lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
You there?
Let me check my settings. Hello? Mic check.
Uh-oh, this is awkward. This is really awkward. I'm reloading. We made it. How long did we make it before technical difficulty? We made it an hour before technical difficulty. Noble, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear, Noble. Are you still in a dark place, or are you finally out of that Texas lost, USC lost dark room?
Man, I was until you brought it up. I'm just kidding.
I wanted to poke the bear. I wanted you to return to form, Noble. I need the wrath of Noble.
I guess I'm over it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if I don't think that game's going to impact, that's not a note on how Elko's going to do in Elko's career here at all, whether he succeeds or fails. But ultimately, no one's going to remember. We barely remember what was year one. What was year one bowl game for? Well, actually, I do remember that for Jimbo. That was the NC State one.
That's the big win.
Yeah. But anyways, we're gonna leave that behind. I think as far as culture goes, I think it definitely was a step up. I might have been one that says that was an optimistic grade. I think it was not from the team. I think B- is spot on. I think it was maybe your offensive grade, but I need to go back and I think I was just super critical of the wide receivers ultimately.
Yeah, I gave them a C plus. I think the productivity by the room was probably C minus, but going off of what SB I think was just saying, I thought receivers did better than their productivity indicated because of the quarterback change. I thought when Marcel was learning, they were a little underutilized.
Yeah, you know what? I think in that case you were spot on with everything. I think in that case we were pretty much agreed across the board, and I'm looking forward to your defensive grades soon.
Yeah, recording that tomorrow morning.
I'll let you do your thing, obviously, when you say it. But I was probably more hypercritical about the defense than the offense this year.
For sure.
But, as an overall team, I think, we definitely, from a culture standpoint, took strides, and just doing the right things and being at the right places. But I will say, culture is important, and part of the problem with Jimbo was definitely that he didn't have a good one, and allowed the players to run rampant. But on the other hand, if we were winning, we wouldn't really care nearly as much.
That's so true. It's true.
Yeah.
I wonder if Jimbo thought he could just out-talent it.
I think he was trying to out Saban, except Saban was also a culture guy. He did both. He recruited and built a culture.
The one that's kind of interesting is Kirby in Georgia, because we see guys getting in trouble there, but what is the culture that we care about? Do we care that people get in trouble, or is culture good if you're just winning games and you're developing players? Is that still a good culture?
I think
it can vary.
That's a fine line to ride, because when you're in a place like Georgia where you're expected to go win championships, you have won championships, you're going to need a caliber player. And when they meet that caliber, you're kind of going to let things slide compared to other places and other players.
Yeah.
That being said, I have no doubt, all that stuff that, is spoken about them is on the off the field stuff. I'm sure, when they're on the field, they made it to the semis of the of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they're showing up for the lifts. They're attending practices. They're putting 110% effort into their football careers. That I'm 100% certain that that's what Kirby's doing over there. So
yeah,
I'm sure. Like I said, we're not after choir boys. Young men are gonna do young men things. We've all been there.
Yep.
And so long as we mitigate, some of that stuff, and continue to get the right players and put them in the right positions from both a X's and O's and also a headspace and culture standpoint. I think that's as much as you can expect from a year one head coach. I don't know. I'm more curious about so obviously we're speaking of Elko's effect and all this, but I wonder. I have a big question on, not that I think anything bad about them necessarily, but what do the assistant coaches that he hired have? What are their parts on it? Because it seems like some of the guys who are more outspoken stand out more, like Trooper Taylor, who's a big you see him in a lot of recruiting videos, and he's going to he's a big part of the recruiting pitch. Obviously every coach is, but
he's a big part of the offense. Do you see him we saw him light me up, boom, all the stuff, how much of a culture guy he is, how much of a spokesperson for the team he is, for not only the running backs.
He's your backwards cap guy.
Yeah, he's your backwards cap guy. He's that guy, and not only that, he also elevated the running back room. I mean, we saw stuff from Le'Veon Moss we hadn't seen before. We saw patience. We saw vision. We saw him hitting the hole. We saw a different Le'Veon Moss this year, and we saw the raw tools before, but we saw him elevate his game, and part of that was an improved offensive line. And I think David talked about this in one of the comments on my last video. I think Trooper Taylor and Adam Cushing were the shining stars of the staff, and pointing at the rest of the staff, I think there are still questions out there. I think there's questions about D-line and the lack of productivity we got from them, particularly down the stretch. I think there's questions about the secondary playing their worst football late in the year. I think those two are big question marks right there, and that goes to the coordinator, but also the position coaches. You're absolutely right.
I think
and the players, of course. The players will take some accountability. It's everything.
Yeah. I think going into the season, I had a lot of questions about Holman Wiggins, especially like what he could do at that position with those players at the time, because none of them were his.
Yeah.
I think this is the year we grade him on, because he came in late, because don't forget Alabama was in the playoff season. Pretty much everyone that was worth getting had already gone to other teams at that time. And so he was left to work with what we have. And after Evan Stewart left, that really cut us at the knees with our receiving production. And then we've hammered this to death already, but quarterback change, offensive system change, when you go from Connor and Marcel back and forth, and you just can't get on the same page. I think you're right. Wide receivers did get more open than it was seeing, but when you're a young quarterback like Marcel, you need to be able to reliably look upon hey, this is my wide receiver one. He's a wide receiver. Any wide receiver one is a one, because they can either get open or make that 50-50 catch every single time.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have that.
Yeah.
I do question because I honestly when a bunch of our receivers hit the portal, not that we're cleaning out house. I think we would have loved to still have those guys, but I think it was pretty apparent hey, we're you when you hire a new coach, then there's going to be a staff change, and then this is his first year. This is going to be a personnel change for him. So he's like, hey, you're more. I'm sure he told everyone you're more than welcome to stay, keep developing, and we'll get you as much playing time as you can earn. But there's a lot of guys, a lot of talent coming in, and that's just the reality of it. And then you got to make a decision best for yourself. And I think that was the message given out. Noah Thomas surprised me a little bit that he left. I'm grateful that he stayed through the bowl game. But he's going into I don't understand the move to UGA, quite frankly. I think UGA is as good a landing spot as he could get, but I don't know why he would move.
Yeah.
He wasn't a wide receiver one target for he wouldn't be a wide receiver one target for anybody, quite frankly, I think. I hope he has a good career at UGA, but he's going into an unproven quarterback situation out there with an offensive coordinator with even more questions than ours. And he has a decade of Mike Bobo has a long history of being questioned at Georgia, whereas Klein, people can question him, but I think it was just year one and a bunch of other stuff.
And we're sitting here kind of, I hate to say the word, but we're kind of excusing the receivers a little bit for having to deal with that quarterback change. In Georgia, they're straight up pointing the finger at the receivers this year. And
I agree. They dropped. Yeah. Oh my God, the pass.
I agree too.
Against Notre Dame was egregious.
Yeah, and he's stepping into that, and maybe he sees a chance to kind of elevate and be at the top of the room of an annual contender. But also, Coley's there, and from reports, Noah was on the fence of staying on last year. That he was a maybe last year, and they got him to stick around. So, and I see Bob saying, "Why did we let Noah walk in to bring these other wideouts I've never heard of?" Is beyond me. According to every reporter out there, this was not a money deal. Money's always involved, but this wasn't a high bidder deal. I think that was equal on both fronts. They tried. They tried their hardest to keep Noah, and Noah chose to leave, and we almost lost him last year. He didn't have the productivity he wanted this year, and he left. And
Noah had way more leverage last year too. He knew that we didn't have anybody, and we needed every man we could get at the wide receiver position. And this year, I'm sure we were offering hey, please come back, but this is wide receiver 2 money, quite frankly. Yeah. Concepcion was going to be your number one. There's only a finite amount of resources you can divert to each individual player.
Sure.
And that was a huge chunk of it's going to go to Concepcion, no doubt. And I think I don't know. I hope it wasn't ultimately money, bag chasing at the end of the day.
We were
Like,
told it
you gotta
wasn't. I don't know though. It could be.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you. I mean, like, if you're not gonna be a wide receiver one, it's hard to make it into NFL. So he's got to do what's best for him and his family.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like he's gonna. I think the way that the new receivers are setting up, and this is what I'm excited about, is like you just get a lot more speed. Like, you know what helps with separation besides route running? Speed, ultimately.
Yeah.
And so like it's like the F it, someone's gonna be open down there, Concepcion's gonna be open down there,
Yeah.
and just chuck it down the field.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have that. It was like even if like Noah Thomas is 6'6", you throw it up. That's a true 50-50 ball. Like the whole point of being 6'6" is that you make it a 60-40.
Yeah.
But with Noah Thomas, it's like he was using his size to make up for his lack of ability to get open nearly as much.
Yeah, yeah. And SB Hustle, this is a very fair point to bring up. I think you guys are being too generous about receivers being open. I'm not even as high on Noah Thomas as you guys are. Would any receiver outside of maybe Noah have started at Texas, LSU, and Oregon? Probably not. And look, I'm talking the difference between a C+ and a failing grade. I'm not giving them like a B+, anything like that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying they were great. We're
having
having this discussion at a much lower margin than maybe we're making it sound, SB Hustler. So I'm on board with you. They weren't elite. There weren't receivers that were open on command. I just think that Marcel did miss some, and the numbers and the productivity would have felt a little bit differently had he been more locked in. If we got USC Reed through those last 4 games, I think they get much more productivity, and we saw it kind of working up. We saw it versus Auburn. We saw it early versus Texas, and that thing went downhill. We saw it versus USC.
I think
I'm not saying they were
Connor could have made it
spectacular.
work.
Yeah, exactly.
Last year Connor could have made that work. I think like the thing that ultimately told me that the receivers were not doing nearly as bad as I thought, and that it was a Connor Wegman problem. As much as me, I was pulling for Connor up until the last second against LSU.
Yeah, I was too.
Was the Film Guy Network where he showed like receivers were getting open against LSU zone or whatever they were running, and it was like, oh my God, how are you missing that, Connor?
Yeah,
and it was like that's game over. We're moving on to a new quarterback, and we're gonna try it again.
It's like you're still gonna get some of those problems with Reed, but Reed has the upside of running, so might as well make the switch and not just have to deal with just the kind of Connor's kind of one-dimensional, and you're gonna deal with that problem with Reed again. But you get the running.
I don't think it was close. I think I think something in Connor's game had dropped to such a level where he was more of a. Like it wasn't like he was bringing like a 50-50, onto the field. It was, at least against LSU, he was completing like a low percentage, and drives were just spattering out. But at any rate, that's me harping off on the offense enough. I think as far as next year goes, well, hold on, I'll still go into this year. I think what holds back the giant leap in culture is, or maybe that's just an X's and O's thing, I don't know, but is the inability to take advantage of perceived opponent weaknesses. Like everything we say about any opponent, like oh, they struggle, protecting the quarterback to South Carolina, or Quinn Ewers, is got a bum ankle, or Auburn just sucks, and then none of it matters. Like we somehow, I guess it is part of it's playing down to the opponents, but I think it was more like parts of the team playing down. Like it wasn't like you saw like an overall drop in everything. We just couldn't play complementary football on every single level, and I don't know what's up with that. I think a lot of it comes down to because I was critical of the defense is the D line specifically.
Exactly. South Carolina had one of the worst offensive lines in the conference. Arkansas did too, and we took advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame had a brand new offensive line, and we couldn't take advantage of it.
Notre Dame.
Great game plan. I think it's turned out that Mike Denbrock's an absolute G in terms of play calling. He's amazing, but we still couldn't personnel for personnel take advantage of it for whatever reason. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna get into my high horse on that tomorrow morning on the defense, but
I'll let you take your stage on that one. As far as next year goes, I can definitely see a path to 9-3. I just think you're gonna have to see something you haven't seen before out of A&M in general. We're gonna have to prove a level of consistency that's better than 8-4. We got back to 8-4 this year, and I said that was okay. The end of the year collapse just made it suck more than
Yeah.
we would like it. But we need to prove we can, win on the road consistently. We need to prove that, the best parts of our team can rise to the occasion. That's the sucky part is like you watch like these like I love watching the playoffs. You get to watch high quality, like they're all such well-rounded teams, but they all have an elite piece to it. And like for example, Ohio State is like like the the receiving game is going to do something. The D line is going to rise up to the occasion.
Freaking running
And
backs. I know they have all these elite pieces and they pan out.
yeah, like it's funny
And
that
if one doesn't, the other does. Like last game, Jeremiah Smith didn't do anything, but the running backs went crazy.
yeah, like exactly like some part of the team picks up the other if they're not doing well. Here's like if at A&M it's like if not every single thing is going right, then and we just don't have the talent of Ohio State. That's okay. Not many teams do, but you need your best pieces. And I keep beating this to death. The D line.
Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. I mean,
think,
that's the thing. Like my big concern of the year, like the reason I think behind everything, kind of at the root of everything, and people disagree with this, that's okay. The way I feel about it, going into the year, I felt like there were two pieces of the team that would elevate the rest of the team wherever you had question marks. We had question marks about O-line going into the year. We had question marks about receiver going into the year. We had question marks about tight end going into the year. But I thought Connor Wegman was going to elevate all of that, and it didn't happen.
Yep.
That ended up hurting us down the stretch. Le'Veon Moss was able to cover up some of those lumps early. That running attack, the offensive line improvement was all able to. You lose Basantis, you lose Moss, you lose your crutch. It ended up hurting us. Defensive line was supposed to give this new secondary a chance, put the quarterback on a clock, not let him get comfortable, make him inaccurate. And when it worked really well. LSU, Missouri. But when it didn't, you had a 4-game losing streak, and players like Lenora Sellers, who has a tremendous talent, but hadn't shown it on the year yet, were able to pop off because we couldn't freaking tackle the guy. Peyton Thorne, Peyton Manning. I mean, damn.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. I think, we're just going to have to see something we haven't seen yet. Like, I think, I was pretty down on the defense by the end of the season, especially after that bowl game. But I just have to remind myself that we had high expectations for this year, and I don't know, everyone has a different definition of high. I thought we'd go 9. I thought they'd be really good. And then obviously throughout the 7 win, you thought you could potentially get 10 and go to the SEC.
Dude, yeah.
But I think Mike Elko can still be that guy. He's just going to have to do it differently than he did this year. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing to see what we do in the offseason. It's not going to be something we see necessarily.
For sure.
Like we've made all the personal acquisitions I think we can make as far as starter, and like impact player point of view. I think it's going to be like the fine tuning, and we didn't do any staff changes. So he's going to I don't think you can, and I don't think Elko will do this, but you can't roll your helmet out the same way you did this year and, expect any different results. We have a substantially, I don't know, we might be a little more well-rounded, but we're going to lose a lot. We're losing so much talent on the D line. It's hard to say that we'll be better. Even though we will be more veteran, I'll say that.
But dude, we didn't even get that much out of them this year. Like,
that's the thing.
I know it could be worse next year, and they weren't bad. They weren't terrible. But they weren't elevating the team besides 2 games, really. 2-3 games. Arkansas, Missouri, and LSU. So the drop-off there might not be tremendous, but any drop-off from there could be bad. It could hurt the team.
Let me ask you this. If we get, let's just say, the same production, more or less, from the defensive side this year as last year, what would you say to that?
The same as this year from last year? I mean, the same as last year, his coming year? I think the offense could potentially elevate you to 8 or 9 wins, but
I agree.
I think that's possible. I think the offense, I don't think there's no world where the offense doesn't at least become more consistent in the running game this year. I mean, the team was freaking on path to being a top 2 running team in the SEC before Le'Veon and Basantis went down. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that Le'Veon Moss was leading the conference in yards per carry before his knee got blown up. I mean, this running attack was elite. It was one of the best in the country. And you get that back plus a year of experience. Hopefully a clean bill of health for all the running backs, including Ruben. I mean, yeah.
So we had 5 losses on the year, and I would say you of those losses, how many of those were because of the offense? Notre Dame, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I think South Carolina was a loss on everybody,
Yeah.
offense and defense. Texas, but you like I said, like I've said this before, I've given the offense a lot more grace just because of the personnel, especially down the stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was some coaching points in the game that I think Elko's acknowledged if they had back would handle differently. Remember, he was asked, why did you just try to run it 3 times at the end? And he goes, I don't have an answer for you. I think he wasn't necessarily happy with that decision. There was a path to win that or be in that game more so than we were at the end of it. I mean,
You mean Texas?
yeah, in that game alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, you missed Moss, and that was just. I think even with Moss, that's a defense that kind of outmatched what you had at offense at the time. Regardless, you still had a chance to win it.
Yeah, Texas defense is just elite, and I don't know. Like obviously, we could have done different things in different ways, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that getting shut out home, like that's the stinger part.
Yeah.
No, we'll have to see a giant leap in production, and it's going to be interesting. I think if we can defend the home front, that'll be amazing. I think
That's
what
I
it
wanna
is
do.
is like we could never in the world predicted losing to Auburn. That was the frustrating part. It's like, how do you predict that? There's
Yeah.
nothing like in the stats that say that you can predict that. And
Dude, I freaking predicted
so that's
it.
like, how am I supposed to predict anything better than 8-4 next year? Is my thing.
I freaking predicted it, but not really with much knowledge. Preseason, that was one of my trap game losses because it was before Texas. I don't think that's why we lost it. But
I don't know. We just got out.
Yeah, the week
I don't
of,
know.
I said we would win it the week of. But anyway, Noble, appreciate the long call. I'm gonna get to Paul and call it a night. Any closing thoughts?
No, looking forward to off-season content. A&M baseball is going to be an absolute run this year, I think, and that doesn't mean we're going to win the SEC. Just let everybody know it's going to be but this team is insane,
Yeah,
and I can't wait for every minute of it.
Hell yeah, man. We'll talk a lot about it. We'll do watch parties. It'll be a hell of a time. All right, Noble, have a great night.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye.
Later. All right, real quick catch up with the chat, and we'll get to Paul, and we'll get out of here for the night. All right. Right on the money with the D-line. Very disappointing, especially the latter half of the season. I don't know how it just stopped being productive. It was mind-boggling. Joe says Micah should have stayed with Tech. His dad played there, and I'm sure the school really wants to play for his Tech. I mean, maybe. Who knows what he's thinking? I don't know. We haven't seen what he's done, what he can do at A&M. We haven't seen what he can do at Tech. We haven't seen what he can do as a college player. Who knows what he's thinking, Joe? But maybe. We might talk completely differently about this season if Le'Veon doesn't go down. It may have been a blessing in disguise because it exposed our weakness on a big stage. Yep, absolutely. And like I said, you had offensive shortcomings, but your running game was good enough to just kind of elevate you and get you to win games. It was freaking good. It was freaking good running game, man. Hope KC balls out like he said he would come here to do. I think he will. He's going to get the opportunity. That's damn true. And so is Bussy. I mean, we saw Bussy use the most he'd ever been used in that bowl game. Let's keep doing that. Let's get Bussy in that Jabri Barber role, too. I don't know if Bussy's as quick, but Bussy can do a lot of things. He's getting big. Uh-oh, Paul, I lost you in the waiting room. You want to get back in? I was about to get you right on, Paul. I'll give you a second, Paul. We might not have ransacked the portal as hard without that. We will never know. You talking about Le'Veon? Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think they're going to have to go for receiver regardless. I think they needed to elevate the room. D coordinators should probably kick rocks or get his cheeks chewed for that second half of the season. Yeah, he got his cheeks chewed. I guarantee you. A lot of people got their cheeks chewed. Elko looked like he was just ready to chew cheeks in that USC post-game presser. He was the cheek-chewing chingazo. We should let Elko call plays from the press box. Yeah. I don't know people are calling for that, but it's like we just got out of this business. We wanted Jimbo to be more of the CEO. Elko's doing that. I don't want to go back on that. I think we just need to figure out what we need to be. I'm sure some's on Bateman, but I'm sure some's on position coaches, some's on the players. It's all encompassing. I think Elko is, Bateman's somewhat an extension of Elko. They just got to figure it out. And we're going to have to because Bateman's coming back. At least we can go to the Hot Cheeto Bowl. I mean, I like a bowl of Hot Cheetos, though. Bussy's a culture guy and on the field and an on the field guy. I think so. You think Lamont Rogers and Jerome Miles will make an instant impact? I don't want to make any kind of bold prediction and say, yes, they're definitely going to. They definitely have a chance to. But with Jerome, who has the most talent of all the receivers we brought in, keep in mind he's coming off to back-to-back lower leg injuries. And he should be healthy and full go by camp, we think, based on timelines. Still not for sure. But I think there's a path for it. But I'm not ready to predict that just yet. Let's go through spring and then get back to me, Badger. Let's go through spring. But they have a chance for sure. And they might have to. And that might be okay because they're damn talented players. Bussy at nickel and Wildcat quarterback. Well, I would agree with the nickel thing and moving him to DB, but you get Chappelle back next year. Don't forget how Chappelle was trending early in the year. Really, really good in the position change. And from reports, really, really good in fall camp. One of the leaders of the defense, man. Don't forget you get Tariq Chappelle back and Will Lee back, and that's just going to really slot players into their natural positions next year. It's going to help everything out. All right, guys, I guess we're going to close it out. We lost Paul. Paul waited to the very end, and I guess he ran out of time. He's not here anymore. All right, Paul, get back in here next time. I'll take your call next time. Go work on that NCAA 14 dynasty I know you got going on. Go be great. All right, guys, we're going to call it a show. Thank everybody for being here tonight. Like I said, we'll be live again Monday night. National Championship game watch party amongst Aggies. And I will be dropping my defensive grades position by position tomorrow morning, so look out for that. Y'all have a great night. Gig 'em.